Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Chambers. Hello and welcome to the podcast, everyone. I hope you are all safe, happy, and healthy, no matter where you are in the world. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to get ready to talk some travel today, so grab that blanket, get that favorite drink, and curl up so we can get into it. Because today, I'm going to talk about how being a sports fan can get you traveling. Also, I'm going to give some recommendations for must-see stadiums in the U.S. to travel to, and we're going to talk about the most exciting sporting events that make it worth traveling. And stick around to the end of the show as I give you my list of athletes that travel more like the everyday person, and also a list of athletes who travels more like royalty. You're not going to want to miss it. So let's dive right in. So I've been traveling, throughout my life, and I've always been a sports fan, and I never thought that they went hand in hand. I always thought, sports fans are sports fans. They're all over the world, of course, but sometimes you never realize how impactful some of these sporting events and just being a sports fan in general can be. And you're sitting there asking yourself, oh, Brian, I tuned into a travel podcast. Well, that's what I was racking my head about too, because my brother had called me the other day and he was really upset because he wasn't able to go up for a football game up north for a college football game. He wanted to go see a game. And I said, oh, well, you could always just take a trip with the family, and he actually was not really interested in that. I mean, to get him traveling, it was to go to see a sporting event. And that just got me thinking. I was like, how many people begin to travel or start traveling basically because they want to go to some kind of sporting event? And believe it or not, there's a large portion of people in the U.S. that don't really do recreational travel as much as they prefer to go to see sporting events. Some people are very content with where they are. They love where they live, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just was very interesting to find out how many people are willing to make that getaway to a sporting event, sometimes over maybe taking an extra vacation day later, or, getting down to the Caribbean. And I don't think anyone wants to say no to the Caribbean. And of course, cost always comes with this price tag, of course. But some people, when you think about these sporting events, people spend a lot of money on tickets. And we're not even talking major events, just on regular type of games and events and things like that. People will spend a lot of money. And I found that very interesting because I enjoy sporting events. I'm a sports guy. I grew up in a sports family. But if it was up to me, if you're asking me, would I rather put extra money towards a trip or would I rather put extra money towards a sporting event? I'm going to go towards the trip. And my brother pointed out to me when I was talking to him, he says, well, why can't you do both? And so I started thinking about that. And, there's a couple of cities that my wife and I, we love to travel to. And there are times that I've sat there when we've traveled or we're making the trip, and I have always thought, oh, it'd be great to catch a game or something like that. And not just domestically in the U.S. We were traveling in to the Czech Republic, and we went into Prague, and I'm a big water polo person. That's my sport. I know some of you are, I hear the joke all the time. How do they get the waters out of the pool? Anyway, but that's a big sport over there, and we were traveling over there, and it's very unique, and it hit home to me, and I was wanting to know if there was a game I could go see, and I was traveling overseas. I mean, when you're in those big soccer countries, my brother loves soccer as well, so like he wants to go to one of those big games. And again, it just was weighing on me how big of an impact that sports actually has, that it shapes some people's travel plans. And again, that's not a bad thing. I don't think that that's a bad thing. You know what you like what you like. And the more I sat there and contemplated it, because at first, I got to be honest, guys, I was sitting there saying, well, that's not really expanding your horizon right there. The whole point of travel is to enjoy yourself and see things and experience things that you haven't. But who's to say that going to those sporting events, or going across country to see a basketball game or a baseball game or a hockey game or a golf match or whatever it is, who's to say that that is not enhancing their own life and giving them experiences that they haven't had before? And I came upon an article which I found very, very interesting. I found it was on InsideHook.com, and it was an article about a guy, Rich O'Malley, and it talked about how he went to and traveled to all 123 professional U.S. sports teams. So if you're wondering how many professional sports teams are out there, apparently there's 123, according to this article. So that's a lot of travel. Some people, I've seen videos on YouTube about couples or people that travel the world, and they try to do over 100 countries or, things like that. He wanted to travel and see sports teams around the U.S., and it took him 25 years to see a game at all of these 123 professional teams. And I found that really fascinating. And I started reading and wondering, because when you're traveling to different areas, you think about different things, and each stadium and, every sport are unique to that area, or, their crowd base and their fan base is very unique to the area. And each city, like anything that a city does, when you travel there, they have their own style, and they want to incorporate that in their home teams because it represents that city. So I actually began a little bit more interest in how interesting it would be to travel to all these places and really get a feel for the entire U.S., but through the eyes of a sports fan. And, I was reading the article, and he actually left his job working as an executive editor at the New York Daily News. So it's not like he didn't have anything to do. He was, working, there in New York, and, it quoted in there that he, from birth, and there's a quote in here, it says, from this birth of loving to go see baseball stadiums, he would then go see football, basketball, and depending the season, hockey. So he went to everything at that point, and then it just kind of sprung and spiraled, and he found it very interesting. And I sat there wondering, how enriching can this really be to travel to these stadiums? Well, he found it extremely interesting, because not only is it getting him out to see the country and allowing him to travel a lot more, but you think about the amount of people that go to these games and these events, that all of these people that you're getting to meet that are local to that area and what they represent and how they are, and you get an opportunity to meet these people in a different surrounding. But when you're seeing an event, the event has to end at one point, and then you're there in the city and you get to experience it. So this kind of was a springboard to get him to go to these different cities. And then he decided he wanted to write a book. So getting a chance to write a book, and I'm sitting there as I'm reading wondering, well, what is he really going to write a book about? Why would anybody really care to listen to him talk about how he traveled to, Lambeau Field up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and if you're not from Green Bay, then, or you're not a big sports fan, people probably wouldn't care. I mean, they're thought to go, no, do I need to go to that stadium to experience? But what about the area? What time of year was he traveling? And then I started reading. He would be talking about, again, a lot more of the sports type of things, but best tailgate scene, most obnoxious fans. One of my favorites was that he said that he was talking about best food and drink. So right there, that struck to me because I'm a foodie guy. I love it. I love trying food from different regions, getting a flavor for what's going on. So anywhere I go, I'm gonna try some kind of local cuisine or just see what's popular in the area. If any of you guys listen to one of my other podcasts, I talked about going to Memphis, and there was a big difference between the barbecue there and the barbecue in Texas, but I got to try it. And I was really interested because he says that the Citizens Bank Park has the best food and drink options in baseball. So if you're going to Citizens Bank Park, has the best food and drink options in baseball. He says it's not the healthiest, but it certainly has a wide variety of things like crab fries. Now, I don't know about you. That doesn't necessarily sound unhealthy, in my opinion, but I'm sure it's fried and things like that because it's fries. So right there, I love crab. I love things that are fried. I'm going to try that. Crab fries sound delicious to me. So I was kind of already in heaven at that point. He also says, Miller Park, which is in Milwaukee, it was another favorite of food and drink that he tried because it had a bunch of different options, like different hot dogs and sausages, brats and things like that. And, again, speaking my language now, the language of food and, getting a chance to try things in the city and what's native, I'm getting more excited about this. Not necessarily about going to the game or anything like that, but getting to experience it. Because, a lot of these sports teams and a lot of people that go to these events, I know we want to, like a lot of us, when we picture things like that, you're picturing what's shown on TV and what people see, the crazy fans or the ones that are all painted up and, it says, "Hi, Mom," across their chest, and things like that. But there's plenty of people that attend these events that love it, that go, that are just people that live in that city and just enjoy it. And they just love that team represents them. And in turn, that just makes it really interesting to meet and be around that atmosphere. So, the one thing that actually caught my eye before I get off of the food was that he mentioned the Dodger dog, which most people, even if you're not a sports fan, if you've heard of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who long ago used to be the Brooklyn Dodgers. Anyway, hopefully the sports podcast has got a story on that. But yeah, that was just, he said it was, for all that hoopla, it wasn't that great. So LA, I don't know, but there's a lot of fantastic restaurants and things out in California, but he wasn't a fan of that, so I found that really interesting. Other topics that he'd find in the book, you can find in this was, best bang for your buck, funniest fans. Another one, best accents. I thought that one was kind of great, the best accent. And he says, and his was the Minnesota accent. So anytime you get an accent up there, he says, but he likes, everyone talks about New York, but he mentioned the Minnesota accent. So, when you think about that, every region of the country that you travel to, everyone has a little bit of a different accent, a little change in tone. I think it's hilarious sometimes when people portray Americans as Southern, we have this accent like this, and and being from Texas, people are actually surprised sometimes because they're like, "Oh, you don't have a Texas accent," and I guess sometimes it comes out, and I have to admit, I say y'all. I do say y'all, not as much as my wife, but I say y'all. But I think that's really interesting, and so. Before you guys write off of saying sports has nothing to do with travel, well, you think about how spread out and how much that sporting events connect the country. And traveling to these stadiums really opened up his eyes. And if you're a sports fan and you're looking for a reason to go travel to different cities, and you're not one that really wants to go and see the museums and things like that, going to a sporting event and getting yourself into that city and that culture is another way to do it. So I kind of applaud him for that. And to spend as many years as he did doing it, it was said that it took him 25 years to see all the stadiums. So if you got 25 years there, then hey, go for it. But again, I will not knock anyone that is wanting to travel because of a sporting event. It's something that I think any time you can travel or that motivates you, I think that's a great thing. Well, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about my must-see stadiums in the U.S. So speaking of those sporting events, we're going to talk about those must-see stadiums because I have a few. And even if you're not a sports fan, I think some of you might enjoy some of these. So stick around.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. We just finished talking about sports fans being motivated to travel by visiting stadiums in the U.S. And is it beneficial to be a sports fan to get yourself traveling? And I say yes. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And going off of that, we're now going to talk about some must-see stadiums and things in the U.S. that I highly recommend based on my own experience. So let's really dive right into those. And some of these you may have already been to, and some you may have no desire of going to, but I will say the culture and the atmosphere in these places really says a lot about the area and the city and where you're traveling. And it's very different in every one of them, and I found that the most unique. So let's start with the top of my list here. And Yankee Stadium. So if you don't know anything about any type of sports, I'm sure anyone's heard of Babe Ruth or the New York Yankees. I mean, everyone has, right? So Yankee Stadium, it's in the Bronx. You know, if you've never been to New York, it may not be your main reason for going with so many things to do, but I will tell you, and I will recommend, if you have a chance to go see a New York Yankee baseball game, it is an experience in itself, just going. You don't even have to like baseball, and I promise you will probably enjoy yourself more than you think because the atmosphere is so electrifying. When you walk in, it's like a heartbeat of New York almost, among many other things. For me, my first stop is usually Broadway. But if I had a close second, and had some time, I would definitely go see another Yankee game. My family, again, we're kind of split between a lot of the arts and a lot of the sports in our family. And my uncle is a really big Yankee fan. And when I was visiting, he lives up in New York. And when I was visiting him, he got tickets and he got off work and he said, "Oh, well, you're in town. You want to go see a Yankee game?" And I said, "Sure, I've never been. Why not?" And we went, and just when you get there, one, if you've never been to the Bronx, if you've only been into Manhattan and downtown, going to the Bronx in itself, it can be a very big cultural difference for many of us, especially someone coming from the South. It was very interesting, and I found that I found it great. I loved it. It was fun for me. And I kind of got made fun of a little bit. He had some of his friends that were up there in the Bronx, and, they would kind of give me a hard time about being from Texas and, needing to ride a horse in this. But it was all in good fun. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And when you think about the accents and how people, when you think, oh, New York, and you talk about, oh, I got the New York accent, and you have all this, it really does exist. And when you're doing a lot of things in New York City and in very high touristy areas, sometimes you just don't get that sense of being in New York. I always would go out to Staten Island and Long Island and in Queens, where my family was. So I didn't ever have anyone that I knew in my family up in the Bronx. But going there for the first time was just very, very unique experience. And then on top of that, going with everyone to a Yankee game and really seeing everyone come alive. And when you walk in that stadium, it was incredible. I mean, we walked in and you felt like you were very close to the field. And of course, now there's a new stadium that they built, but I went to the original, and thinking about the history of that stadium and just being there, because it's located in the Bronx, right? And they call it the house that Ruth built. But it was built, and they had games in that stadium from 1923 to 1973, right? And then there was a split of time, and then it was from 76 to 2008. And 2008 was the last time that stadium itself was played in, and then they had a new stadium completely built that was pretty much right next to it. So you think about the history and the iconic things that have happened, because the thing is, in the 1920s and some of those older stadiums, they weren't just used for one thing. There was different types of events that were held at those stadiums. And because, everyone talks about, the Astrodome here in Houston where I live, and you think about everything that was held there. Muhammad Ali fought in the Astrodome. It wasn't just, for baseball and football. There was, tennis matches, the GOP conventions and things like that. I mean, there's some amazing things that have happened in these stadiums. And so you think about going back to 1923 and thinking, from that point on, what has happened with that stadium. It's really incredible. And the love that everyone has for the New York Yankees and those Yankee fans, it was unreal. It was just unreal. And to me, a baseball game with, a dog and a beer is really relaxing. There's something about a hot dog at a sporting event to me that tastes better. I think I've grown out of the nacho thing. That to me, just my stomach is not going to be happy with me for ballpark nachos. But something about getting a hot dog, just no matter where you're going, if at a sporting event, to me is just great. So I highly recommend Yankee Stadium, or going to see a game at Yankee Stadium. You will enjoy yourself tremendously. Be aware, if you're rooting for the other team, you may not find as many friendly people there, but you're really going to get a feel for the people of New York, I think. And it's just really great. So I recommend it. The next place happens to be another baseball field. And this was one that I never thought I would get a chance to go see until my wife brought me. And, I have to thank her for so many things, because there's so many experiences and travel experiences and things that we've done that I probably never would have done without her, that she found and that she discovered or thought that we might like or wanted to try. And so I really just wanted to, for anyone listening out there, she is fantastic. She has opened my eyes up to so much. And this was one of them, Wrigley Field in Chicago. We went up to Chicago, and we had a whole birthday weekend planned. And, the one I wanted to go to one place called the Green Mill, which was, Al Capone and those gangsters kind of were there, and it had this kind of music vibe and everything. And I highly recommend that. That's great. Just make sure you get there early, because you're not going to be able to sit down. But the drinks are good. The music's fantastic. And it's kind of up that direction towards Wrigley. So if you're going to be up that way, it might be it might be one that I would recommend to put on that stop maybe after the game or something, or if you are staying close to the area. But Wrigley Field is another stadium that has a lot of history to it. And it's basically, it's known, people think about it, and it's known for those ivy-covered, the ivy-covered brick walls in the outfield out there. It's this unusual pattern. It has unusual wind patterns off Lake Michigan, so you never know. It's really kind of neat to see, in part of the day, the wind's blowing one direction with all the flags, and then you look, and it has just all of a sudden another direction of wind blowing. And it's just it has also that iconic marquee at the front, which just screams Chicago to me. It really does. It's over the main entrance. It's one of those iconic pictures that you want to get. And when you go on a great day where the weather's just gorgeous, we were there in September and caught a game, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was perfect temperature to be outside, first of all. So it was gorgeous, blue skies. It was warm enough to be comfortable, but if you were in the shade, it kind of got a little cool. So we enjoyed ourselves. And the neat thing was that I look at it as a plus, but the building being so old that there was a lot of things that you could say going to a stadium, it's not going to be the most pleasurable experience as far as some of the other places or stadiums that you can visit. Because of the age of the building, there are some things that you kind of have to deal with. Those bathroom situations are not exactly fantastic because of the stadium. Now, they always try to keep up with it and maintenance it, but that's just one thing to be aware of. But it was beautiful. It was wonderful. I had a great experience. The stadium is not as big as you think, because when they were hitting foul balls or things that would fly back, it would actually go out of the stadium and into the parking lot. And, hey, that is just the time, right? That's just the time. You didn't have to worry about all the cars and things back in the day because, Wrigley's been around for a long time. Now, one of the other really great things about Wrigley, which I think it's wonderful if you're in Chicago, again, to feel the beat of Chicago. Now, you have to be aware that Chicago is split into two baseball teams. You have the White Sox and the Chicago Cubs. So choose wisely. I found out. But it's in a area of it's a neighborhood, basically. So it's located, you take the train up there, and it's really, you get off into an area called Wrigleyville, and it's right in this neighborhood, and there's shops and restaurants and stores and street vendors and things. It's a really big spectacle, and it's a lot of fun because you're traveling with people on the train to the game, and everyone gets up there, and it's just you're all kind of going to the same thing, and it's just giving you a chance to interact with people from Chicago. But I highly recommend it. Okay, another one that I have a small soft spot for, because my family is a big Fighting Irish family, is Notre Dame Stadium. And again, a stadium, and if you're not into college football, there's probably no reason for you to go to South Bend, Indiana, because that's where it is. Notre Dame University, or the University of Notre Dame, is in South Bend, Indiana. And it's got a lot of history, and you can kind of see a theme with a lot of this. The history of things with the architecture mixed in, it just becomes really interesting. And Notre Dame opened 89 years ago. Notre Dame Stadium was opened 89 years ago. So in 1930. Okay, that's not when the university started, but that's when they opened Notre Dame Stadium. And the seating capacity was nearly 60,000 for decades. And you think about that. From 1930, when they opened, to current day, of course they've added more seats. I think they said 1997 they increased the capacity to 80,000, right? So 60,000 people in a stadium in 1930, that was a big deal. That was a really big deal. And what I find refreshing about the stadium is, one, that a lot of, again, the traditions and the thing about the university is really incorporated, but it's a pleasant place to watch an event. And they've had, people from Billy Joel to Garth Brooks, who have done concerts and all kinds of things there. And the stadium is really built, the seats are really on top of the field. There's very little room. Like a lot of these stadiums that you go to now, you know, when you go and you visit them or you see a game, your seats could be really high or really far back from the actual event. That was one thing that makes the stadium really unique. And their the head coach, Newt Rockne, back in when the stadium was opened, you know, had a key role in designing it. And that was kind of one of the big things, is to minimize the distance between the playing field and the fans and the spectators. And it just gives that, again, that sense of energy that comes across when these events are going on. So I really recommend that one. Now, the last one was hard for me to put on my list, but I have been there and it is really quite amazing. And it is in Arlington, Texas. It's AT&T Stadium. And there's so many things that are events that are held, whether it's concerts, sporting events, everything. This place is built for events. It really is. Now, Arlington is just outside of Dallas. You know, it's not exactly considered in, I guess, the whole DFW area, but it's really huge. But this is the neat thing. I found a couple wonderful facts when I was visiting. And one, it's 3 million square feet. It's 3 million square feet, and that's pretty big. And the arches, the steel arches, soar about 292 feet above the playing field and support the world's largest dome. That's right, in sports, as a sports structure. So that's pretty incredible as it is, as an architectural feat. That's pretty amazing that they do that. You know, the 14,000 ton retractable roof opens and closes in 12 minutes. So again, you think of the architectural design that goes into things like that. And it's not just these teams and sport, and just all the people that are involved that kind of help create this. So it also, for those that even care, it has the world's largest high definition video screen. So even if you're sitting at a distance at an event really far back, you are going to see the action or whatever is going on that screen. Now, that wasn't even the most interesting thing that I found. The most interesting thing that I found was that and this is kind of unique, that AT&T Stadium has a collection of museum quality contemporary art. And that is supposed to enhance the iconic architecture of the building. So there's a lot of art enthusiasts as well as sports fans that go and see this. So it has its own really art gallery. It also has a really high-end restaurant there. So if you're looking for really great food, so you can do tours of this and you can get on the field and see and it's just kind of just exploring the building. It's kind of really neat. So even if you're not going to an actual game or event, you can actually go see the stadium and really see the architectural things and all the design things about it. So it kind of has a little bit of things for everyone. So in that sense, I found that very, very unique. Well, there you go. Those are recommended stadiums that I think everyone should see. If you love that type of thing, I highly recommend those. So stay with me, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the most exciting sporting events that are worth traveling to. And make sure you stay to the end of the show as I talk about what athletes travel more like everyday people and who travels like royalty. You're not going to want to miss it.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, guys. We were just talking about the recommended sports stadiums if you are traveling and love those sporting events to go see. So I highly recommend all those. But there are sporting events that that are worth talking about, and sometimes even worth traveling for, because some of them they move around the country and are never in the same spot. Others that I will mention are there every year, but always worth traveling for. So let's get into it. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Churchill Downs. That's right, those ponies. That's right, the Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby, in Churchill Downs, very close to Louisville, Kentucky, is something that's been on my bucket list for a long time, to be honest with you. And not because I love to watch the horses race. I do. I think it's great. And I'm not a big gambler, so for me, placing that bet or anything, I'm sure if I went, though, I would. But it is really an event in itself, because the one thing you have to know and remember about the Kentucky Derby, that it is 2 minutes. That's right. It's apparently quoted as the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. That's it. Literally 2 minutes. So the entire race is 2 minutes. And so there's a lot to do, though, because people are like, well, why do you pay so much to go to Kentucky to see the Derby? Well, first of all, the crowd, there's about 150,000 people in that crowd, because not everyone is necessarily in a seat. There's grandstands where you can watch where you're standing the whole time. There's things on the infield, different tents, clubhouse things. I mean, it's just incredible. And it's what many consider the largest and most entertaining fashion show as well. And that's where I'm very kind of excited, because just to see the type of people that go, it's, if you've ever seen that movie Pretty Woman and they go see the polo match, it kind of feels like that, where you have your hat and you're dressed up and you have all these outfits, and you of course it's not a polo match, so you're not on the field putting the divots back, but it has that kind of feel to it, right? So it's a very big fashion show, and not only that, there's a lot of celebrities, A-list people, and things like that. So if you're really into that go, and so there's a chance you might run into someone very famous that is there, and you have to get the signature mint julep. That is the drink, the mint julep, and just the entire week of going up there, because you get to walk around the grounds, you get to go see the tents, and there's a couple other things that I want to let you guys know that not many people have realized when I was doing my research on this. That just like the Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks is also a Grade 1 race, okay, and happens the day before. So the Kentucky Oaks is run the day before, so not only can you go to the Derby the next day, but you can actually have another great race, which doesn't have as many crowds and is something big. And I've been told if you're a first-time attendee of Churchill Downs that you should go to the Kentucky Oaks. Let me say that again. The Kentucky Oaks, which is run the day before. So it's recommended to do that, and why not? You're there. I mean, you get the chance to see another fantastic horse race, and really be around the grounds a little bit longer. Just give you a little bit more time there, so you don't feel like you're rushed in. You dressed up, you get your drink, the race is done, and then everything's gone. But it is an experience in itself, and the people that go are very interesting. I'd love to see the fashion show. I mean, I want to see just how big these hats are. So for me, this is one that I have always really wanted to check out. And not only that, when you're there, Louisville is an exciting city, and you're not very far. So there's, especially if you're really into bourbon, that great distilleries. There's a lot of things, great restaurants in Louisville that you can check out. So not only do you get a chance to experience a little bit of Kentucky culture there and get to see the ponies, You also get to spend a little bit of time in Louisville itself. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 type of thing. And again, these are not just a sporting event that happens one day. What I'm going through, these are events that are strung together for the entirety of one thing. So the Kentucky Derby is not just one day. It is multiple days of things going on. And people are there all the time. So it gets you, you're going to be traveling. If you're looking to do this, you're going to be probably spending for some of those clubhouse levels or tier levels, a couple $100 for one of those club levels just to go. But there's so much going on, and it's a very big deal to go and experience this. And even if you don't like horse races, I still think I recommend it. And my wife, again, bringing her up, she has a lot of allergies for horses. So like when we go like where there's livestock and things like that, she has to take allergy stuff. And I already know that this is probably on her bucket list to go do. So she's going to take those allergy medications, and we're going to go. So I recommend it. So you don't have to be a sports nut, or a gambling nut to go enjoy this. It has so many things to do. It's a big social event, lots of different styles and things like that. And you never know who you're going to run into. So the Kentucky Derby, check it out. It's on my list to do. All right, the next one I'm going to say that I came across that to me was interesting enough as an event to go to was the Masters in Augusta, Georgia. That's right. So the Masters is a golf tournament, and it is not a one-day tournament like many golf tournaments. They happen over a span of a couple days. So this is one of the bigger tournaments for golf. So if you're a big golfer, you're already going to know about this. If you're not into golf and, again, not a big sports person, this may not mean anything to you, but it's not a very far drive outside of Atlanta. And we were visiting some family in Atlanta, and we didn't get a chance to go over there. But it's a beautiful, beautiful area, and it gets you out of the city. I think that's what I like most about the Masters and some of the outdoor activities, like the Kentucky Derby. You're not necessarily in the city. You're kind of experiencing something. You're getting away from some of the buildings sometimes and getting a chance to see a little more of that area than you normally would. And to me, just if the weather's gorgeous and just being outside, you can't really feel bad, especially in a beautiful setting, even if you're not a golfer. But I have been told it is one of those experiences just to have, because the people we go, the kind of the overlying theme that I've been talking about is the culture of everyone who loves their sport and loves getting into that event, and it just makes it interesting and much more pleasurable to go to these events and visit and really experience them. And it just kind of opens your eyes to different things that you can travel do during your travels. But they say that the Masters, the best days to go are, if you've never been, are Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, if you're there on Wednesday, you can catch the pros on the championship course in the morning, and then it says you can take a par 3 tournament, taking a par 3 tournament in the afternoon. Avoid some more of the larger crowds. The other days have a lot more people, so they say definitely check out those days. I mean, you're going to want to see the big events anyway if you're going. And the wonderful thing is that you are going to be outside, but when you are outside, just like the Kentucky Derby, you might want to pack some extra shoes because you're going to be doing a lot of walking. So if you are someone that likes to be very stylish and are not going to be comfortable no matter what shoes, guy or girl, doesn't matter, you may want to have something a little bit more comfortable or dress appropriately and have something that you can be comfortable in wearing for long periods of time. So just keep that in mind. One of the bigger traditions that they say is when the ceremonial opening tee shot. Okay, and this is the reason why Thursday is great to go because of that really big opening ceremonial tee shot. And in recent years, for you golfers out there, you know, people like Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Gary Player, things like that, have done the opening tee shot. So I know some of those names. I'm not a big golfer. You know, my brothers are really big into golf, but they adore the experience. And I got to go to a tournament locally here in Houston. The Shell Open is what they call it. And it was a lot of fun. I wasn't into golf, but I really enjoyed the atmosphere of being out there and getting a chance to kind of meet people. And I, you know, again, I go back to food a lot of times when I travel. And so one thing that was also recommended to me, if I go, that I cannot forget to grab a pimento cheese sandwich. It was several people that told me that. So if you're going to the Masters and going to Augusta, then make sure that you get that pimento cheese sandwich. I know I will. I know I will. All right. So, and the last sporting event that I think is really worth traveling for and going to a city is the Super Bowl. It's probably the largest sporting event in the U.S. I mean, a lot of people will argue that there's other events, and there's a ton of other events that I'm not saying that these are the only three. These are probably the only three that I would travel for. They give me a diversity, a diverse trip. I mean, it's not one thing. They're events and things going on, and it gets me a chance to really see and be in the area that I'm traveling to, which is why I recommend them. And the Super Bowl, as crazy as it is, it has so much going on that it's kind of hard not to love experiencing it, you know? And they have everything from fan fest to concerts to, you know, the things in the cities there's going on. There's a lot of buzz going around, and there's so many people and different restaurants, and you get this. It's like each city that event the Super Bowl goes to, it's like a little facelift of what's going on. Like more cities finish construction of certain things, and there's different events that you can go to. Some of them not even related to football, because if you don't know anything about sports, the Super Bowl is a football game. And, you know, I've never been to the game itself. I've only been to a lot of the events that have been going on, and I had a blast. To me, you know, the event was fine, but I've always enjoyed going to those house Super Bowl parties, you know, where you hang out with people, and or if you have a friend in a city and you go and the game's going on, they host one and you get to really meet people like that. So to me, that's more fun, and you get a lot more of the local cuisine in that kind of setting. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't go. If you can afford it, great. But again, I'm going to put that money. I'm going to put that $1,000 for that Super Bowl ticket to another trip. I'm going to go to an island or head to Europe or maybe go on that African safari I've been dying to go on. But if I had to travel for an event, the Super Bowl would definitely be one of them. If I was really, if that's your thing, that would be an event I would do. And that's because there are so many things. It's a week-long event. It's really insane. And they had the Super Bowl in Houston, and you know, being here, it was nice that I didn't have to go find a hotel or things like that. But, you know, I got to go to all the events and see what happened and what happened within the city and things that were enhanced. And it really shines a really positive light on whatever city it's at. And so when it was here in Houston, it shined a very positive light and gave a lot of people that are visiting a chance to explore and know Houston better, in Texas, just in general. And I hope that would be the case in every city that game is at, which is why I highly recommend traveling for the Super Bowl if you can. And again, just to recap, my other two would be the Kentucky Derby and the Masters in Augusta, very unique experiences. And I think that kind of is the one thing that about the traveling with events for me. It has to be a really unique, one-of-a-kind experience. There's a runner-up that I wanted to put out there was the U.S. Open. That would be another one up in New York that I've heard that is an incredible, fun experience that you need to go, which is they play up at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Court in Flushing Meadows up there in New York. But, and my wife was asking me, why wouldn't you put the Olympics? And I go, oh, I'm a Summer Olympics person. I would totally travel for the Summer Olympics, and because I love to travel internationally. But because the Olympics are every 4 years, I didn't put that on my list. So it gets an honorable mention. Absolutely. That would be my first one if I could. But these were events that happen every year. And so if you can, the Super Bowl is unique because it changes cities. Typically doesn't go too far up north a lot, but it does give you a chance to get to different parts of the country. And if sports gets you there, hey, I think it's well worth it. Travel should be experienced in many different ways. Well, there you go. Those are my top 3 events that I think are worth traveling for. When we come back, we are going to talk about what athletes travel more like everyday people and who travels like royalty. So stick with us.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, and thanks for sticking with us. We were just talking about sporting events that are worth traveling for. So I had 3 very top ones that were worth traveling for. And just as promised, if we're sticking around, we're going to go through what athletes travel more like everyday people that you might see at the airport and what athletes are usually traveling like royalty. So let's not delay. Let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with the common man, as I'm putting it. So these are 5 athletes who all are accomplished and all have significant bank accounts. And let me just say, just because they're traveling more like everyday people and they're in commercial flights and things like that doesn't mean that they are not in first class or traveling comfortably. But they are not rolling out the red carpet for everything. So my number 5, Serena Williams, tennis superstar Serena Williams. That's right. Consistently ranked as one of the top tennis players in the world, and she's been consistently ranked there for 10 to 15 years in the top. She earned $27 million in 2016 alone and has an estimated net worth of around $150 million. So you're sitting there, well, why is she traveling like the common person? Well, some people, they just don't want to deal with having their own plane, or they don't mind. That's how you travel. That's how everyone else travels. So there's a high chance you could see Serena Williams at one of the airports. So I don't think you should be afraid to go up and say, hey. Number 4. We're going to get into number 4 here. Sticking with the tennis theme, Maria Sharapova. Again, one of the fiercest tennis stars in the world, in my opinion. And she's been playing tennis since a very, very young age. Playing tennis for a very young age. She became the number 1 rated tennis player by the age of 18. So that's already pretty accomplished at that point in her life. And she's continued to be successful well into her 30s. And I watched a documentary about her. It was an architecture video about her home, and it's always interesting to see how people's homes reflect their personalities and different places around the world that people live and the styles. And it was just very interesting to me. And she was a very relaxed and chill person. So, and, go figure, living in California now these days. But according to Forbes, she has been named the highest paid female athlete in the world for 11 consecutive years and earned $285 million since turning pro. So that's pretty impressive. But she is also one of the people that you might run into at the airport. She is known for traveling commercially, and it's just someone you might see being just among the people, right? Even if she has the means. So there you go. So you might run into Maria Sharapova. Number three. Someone that I hold in a higher regard as a person, and I don't even know him. That's the thing, is Tim Tebow. He's just what I would look at as he puts out there, just a very positive person. And anyone who puts out positivity in the world, I am all for. And that is Tim Tebow. He was a former Heisman Trophy winner. He went to the University of Florida. So he had a career in the NFL, a short career, where he was relatively successful. He wasn't one of those top players of all time type of thing. And he wanted to follow his passion. And that's where I admire him a lot, because he really follows all of his passions, whether it's being spiritual about it and not afraid to do that, or trying something that he could possibly fail. And, that's why I love traveling so much, because you're going and experiencing things that you didn't know were possible for you. So even if you don't know something, or, you're not enlightened into something else, you're open-minded about it, and you're not afraid of it. And he's not afraid to attempt his passions. And so his passion was to play baseball. And so he is playing in AAA baseball. Now, he's not making a lot of money, but he does broadcasting and other things, and he does pretty well. But Tim Tebow is one that you might see traveling more like a common man. There you go. Number two, another one that I love, Simone Biles. So a little bit of Texas love right there. She became a household name during the 2016 Summer Olympics, and she was part of the group known as the Final Five. So if you are not an Olympic person, and I'm a big Summer Olympic person, they were amazing. I love cheering for our U.S. Gymnast, both the men's and the women's team. They were just incredible. But they won 4 gold medals and a bronze at the Olympics. So that kind of propels you into being noticed a little bit in your sport. And because she's considered an amateur, she doesn't make as much money as other pro athletes do. And she gets her sponsorships. So she gets her money through sponsorships, and she's roughly a net worth of about $2 million, which ain't shabby at all. But Simone Biles is one that jumps from, flight to flight, catching tournaments and things like that. She's traveling quite often, I hear. And she's one that you could possibly run into in an airport or see passing by. So there you go. My number one of what I consider top athletes that you possibly could see traveling commercially, or more like what I call the common man. And this one surprised me a little bit to see a lot of more documented commercial travel itineraries on his list. And that is LeBron James. That's right. LeBron James, considered one of, if not the best basketball player in the world. And you could possibly run into him at one of the airports. He's a big family guy, and I think he has so much going on that I think it's just one less thing for him to worry about. And a guy that's come from humble beginnings, I don't think is afraid to go there. But again, if I had the means to travel on my own jet, I would be doing it. I'm the first one to say I would be guilty, because I would love not having to wait for everybody else and to get to that destination that I wanted to go to. And not to mention, most of these guys are traveling, because of their sport or their profession, and they're having to go to a lot of different things, or they're a high profile personality and things like that. So they need to go to these events and travel. But, it is there for their use if they had that private jet and they wanted to travel, to the Caribbean, or, get that safari in Africa, it's great. It's really great. But LeBron James is one that's considered kind of a man of the people, I think. And according to sources, they say his contract for the Los Angeles Lakers when he moved to LA was over $150 million. Yeah, that's a lot of money. I think he's doing pretty well. And that's not even including any endorsements. He deals with producing shows, and he's in broadcasting. He's also into charities. He's a very charitable guy. So for everything that he does, he's up for he's an advocate for social justice, and I think that's great. He's using that platform. But LeBron James makes my number one list. There's been a lot of people that have documented seeing him in the LAX airport. And again, guys, when I say this, that doesn't mean that they're not flying first class and things like that. But they may not be flying those private jets in what we would consider the very luxurious style. Speaking of the luxurious style, let's get into that right now, because there are a couple athletes that typically style or travel in a style of what I would rate as royalty. That's right. When you have the means, why do it? I kind of wish I was in this category. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But number 5, Serena Williams. Now, you say, well, Serena Williams was on the other list. Well, yes. But again, Serena Williams' net worth is about $150 million. So she has the means to travel. And just because she's been seen traveling commercially or in another form or way doesn't mean that she can't. So I put her on both lists. I mean, she can do whatever she wants. And I think she's fantastic for what she's done in the sport of tennis and as a person. But again, netting that much money, I'm willing to bet that she has traveled a little more luxurious and privately at times. Number 4, Tiger Woods. If you don't know who Tiger Woods is, well, to be honest, I don't know anyone who doesn't know who Tiger Woods is, even if they don't follow golf. When you hear Tiger, you're like, oh, golf. Yeah. I know no one else in that sport, but I do know Tiger. And Tiger is one. Well, let me just tell you this. According to Forbes, Woods is worth over $740 million in both PGA Tour wins and sponsorship deals combined. That's a lot of money. And when you're making that kind of money, of course you're going to have a private jet. He has a private $54 million Gulfstream jet that he pays for. So, yeah, he's traveling in style and what I would consider royalty. That's right. So Tiger makes my number 4. Number 3 is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan travels with his own private custom jet. And when I say that, he has that G5 that he uses, right? And not only does he have that private G5, he has used to have the colors of North Carolina's theme, the blue and white, because that's where he went to school. He was a Tar Heel. But apparently he recently changed up some of the branding on his jet, and it's the Jordan logo brand that he has on the jet. So just in case you didn't know whose jet it was, Michael Jordan has made it well known that is his jet. And this jet is equipped with Rolls-Royce engines, very powerful engines. And that $50 million plane can accommodate anywhere between 14 to 19 passengers. So you got to imagine he's flying with an entourage. That's right. And just in case you didn't know by the Jordan logo that's on the back of the plane, on the wing of the plane, he put something else along the engines, and it says N236MJ. And you're like, well, that means nothing to me. Well, let me tell you this. The 23 stands for his jersey number. The 6 is for the number of championships he's won. And then, of course, MJ. So his initials. So there you go. Just in case you didn't know by the logo, he's going to make sure you know whose plane it is. So Jordan makes my number 3 as he travels in with, I call, royalty. Number 2 is Tom Brady. He's one of 2 players to have won 5 Super Bowls. So he's pretty well known as an NFL player. And if you didn't know him as a player, he's also married to a supermodel. So his net worth is about $180 million, and her net worth is even more than that. It's apparently around $360 million. So that household dual income is pretty nice. And if you have that kind of income, why not travel like royalty? That's right. You're going to have that private jet, and It carries up to 19 passengers and has 8 sleeper seats in it as well. So there you go. Tom Brady, his family is traveling in style, and if you're close friends with them, I'm sure you're traveling in style. My number one, those again that know this might not know him or of him, might not be as surprised, but Floyd Money Mayweather. That's right. His nickname is Money. Floyd Money Mayweather, right there, is one of the richest athletes in the world. So right when you hear that, you're like, that guy's got to be traveling in style. And why not, right? Again, according to Forbes, he made over $275 million for his one fight against Conor McGregor. So that's one night's worth of work. If you could work one night and get paid $275 million, I'm sure everyone with that opportunity would jump on it, right? So, of course, he's flying luxury. He has a 12-seater Gulfstream. In fact, a 12-seater Gulfstream 3. And, in fact, I believe he has more than one, if I'm not mistaken. And what makes this jet so fantastic is the interior. It may not look like much from the exterior because there are many millionaires that have Gulfstream 3 jets. Well, his interior has gold cup holders, a gold sink, a gold faucet, gold drawers, and gold vents, with white leather seats and a fully stocked kitchen. So he's traveling in style. And not only that, when he gets out, there's usually a red carpet rolled out with his name on it when he gets off his jet. So you know who's showing up and when he's there. So there you go. And these are just a couple of athletes that I consider that fly or travel in royalty. And obviously, they're not actual royalty, but when you throw that much money around, you kind of live in that realm, right? And it doesn't have to go for planes only. Some of them have just as expensive with cars and entourages like that. And some of these, there are some that didn't make the list, but these were my top 5. And my top 5 of people you might run into in the airport. So it's really kind of great. That is my list. Thanks for listening, and I hope you've been inspired to take a trip this year or look to start planning one. It's never too late to start traveling. It can open our eyes to new experiences, even unlock things about ourselves that we never knew. I believe everyone should travel and explore more of what this world has to offer. It can give us an appreciation and love for so many things. So let's get traveling.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.